once again my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I am your host, the One Take Man. On June 13th, 13 years ago, Avatar The Last Airbender came to an end, thereby concluding a series, an anime series that is fair to say probably one of the most celebrated of all time, and with good reason. It proved that once again Nickelodeon has an amazing capacity for storytelling innovation, and was able to deliver a rich and involving world in history that was basically guaranteed to draw in anybody. A few years after its ending, a sequel series called The Legend of Korra started airing. And while I will applaud Legend of Korra for expanding the setting in ways that the initial series never could, and for addressing some of the consequences that would arise from the way that show ended, it did so very sloppily. And arguably in doing as bad a job as it did, it pretty much killed all stories that could be told within the future of this franchise's timeline. I could spend this video on how I would rewrite Korra, but because I like to challenge myself, I will instead handle everything that happened in Legend of Korra as part of the established history, and move on to a future series. One that would be set a few decades after the end of Legend of Korra, that would focus on a new avatar, who would distinguish himself through his skill and his sense of grace and attention rather than boisterousness. Yes, himself, because I want this new avatar to be a guy. It's not just because I think, and it's not because I think it's not because I think that having the avatar be female is SJW bullshit. And it's also not because I want to create a cheap contrast between him and Korra. It's because I want to establish a more elaborate contrast between him and Kyoshi, the last Earthbender-born avatar. Within the Avatar fandom, Kyoshi kind of has this reputation as being a disaster gay. Someone who is very passionate, very boisterous, who has a great deal of confidence in herself and her abilities, but who also kind of lacks perspective often enough, and is somewhat negligent or not exactly as careful as she should be when it comes to handling her powers. Therefore, having a guy who distinguishes himself by being more skilled, more deliberate, more calculating in how he uses his abilities seems like a good way to contrast her. And it also reflects the way earthbending as an art and a discipline has evolved over the course of this franchise. And I will now go a little bit in depth on how I want episode 1 to look, and then describe how I want how I will handle each individual season. We start episode 1 at the graduation ceremony from the King Bumi Military Academy based in Omashu. And per the Academy tradition, the valedictorian will be chosen by a straight up fight between the two best students, who are then called up to the front to, have their one-on-one fight. Those two students will be the Avatar, let's call him Tien, and his best friend. They fight, Tien wins, and receives his award for being a valedictorian. After he receives his award, a White Lotus delegation walks in, everyone bows before them, and then the leader of the White Lotus delegation turns to Tien and goes, "You bow to no one, Avatar." At which point the White Lotus reps bow. They are quickly followed by the faculty and the student body. Tien smirks, tells them all to stand up, and then reveals that he already knew he was the Avatar. Maybe he could even tell the assembled people there how he found out. Showcase that he showcase that he uses his smarts and is somewhat more worldly than his peers. The next sequence we'll see Tien pack his things and then say goodbye to these various friends, maybe, and discuss what they will be doing now that they've graduated the academy. Tien is then taken to the White Lotus hideout in Omashu and is being briefed on what a plan for him in the next couple of years will be, depending on how fast he masters the elements. In discussions that would take place here, we would find out what Tien is maybe most looking forward to, and or what he thinks he'll struggle with the most. Maybe he can even meet his sifus there. Maybe. The episode will end with Tien and a chaperone going to some fancy party, and on their way to the fancy party, they come across a theater, an opera house, whatever, something along those lines, that is under attack, being vandalized, being destroyed, whatever. Tien jumps to the occasion, stops the attackers from going after that establishment any further, and then fights them in a protracted or prolonged action scene. He manages to overcome them. Then the police comes up, arrests the vandals, and as they are arrested, one of them, in dismay, fear, or some combination thereof, will turn towards Tien and go, "What? What are you?" To which Tien will very calmly reply, "I am the Avatar." End of episode 1. As for the actual seasons, I wanted to mirror what Legend of Korra did to some extent. While Legend of Korra spent each of its seasons debunking particular political ideologies, I instead want to use the seasons from the sequel series to explore one particular philosophical concept and how it applies to something as large and diverse as a country, using each country within the setting as a case study. For the season in the Fire Nation, I want to talk about national pride, how it forms, how it is maintained, and what the outcome or the results of it are, both for good and for bad. The villains of this particular season will be Fire Nation supremacists, and I want their rhetoric and tactics to be based on the modern alt-right. Give the future audience a more effective way to counter their arguments and tactics. For the Air Nation season, or Air Nomad season, I want to look at the concept of liberty. Airbending philosophy requires one to forego attachments. However, from a pragmatic standpoint, airbenders still need to build communities and maintain their temples, so some level of attachment is still needed. There is a duality at place there that I think can be played with. And I want to contrast the Air Nomads with a newly reformed Red Lotus. One that would be one whose philosophy would be based on Russian anarcho-nihilist movements. They would functionally be pretty similar to the Red Lotus that has already been established in the franchise, but should seem at least a bit more realistic. For the Water Tribe season, the theme, the concept I will explore is opportunity. More precisely, how differences in opportunities offered within a given society lead to that society getting splintered and manipulated. It would be very easy to just have some tribal chief or leader be the villain in a story like this, but honestly, we've already had a bad Water Tribe chief be the villain, Unalaq in Legend of Korra, so I'm not gonna do that. Tribal chief could still be a villain, but I want the main villain to be the equivalent of a clergy representative. Someone who uses their sway and their influence and the trust that others place upon them in order to manipulate the opportunities presented to the community in such a way that them and their posse, so to speak, get to have the lion's share of the potential rewards, while leaving their congregation, their flock, uh, in the dust, and convincing them that it is better this way. Yeah, it's gonna go pretty dark, I have to admit, but you have to go dark in order to really explore topics like this, for one, and for another, keep in mind that by this point the Avatar will have mastered, or come close to mastering, all 4 elements. So yeah, so putting the Avatar against a more vile villain really will make his eventual victory that much more meaningful, that much more triumphant, or at least it will seem that much more triumphant. For the Earth Republic season, the theme will be unity. By that I mean what makes people decide that they should be united, how does that unity benefit them, and at which point does that unity become toxic. This will pretty much cement the running gag of the Avatar and his more precisely, Avatar and their acolytes arriving in Ba Sing Se, and then the leadership going to hell. However, hopefully this time it will only be the leadership that goes to hell. I also want to spend a season exploring the spirit world, and see how the spirit world has changed now that it has had contact with humanity for a very long time, and maybe delve somewhat into the responsibilities the Avatar has towards it. Maybe you could build this last season up, or the eventual story for the last season, over the course of all the others, with the appearances from various spirits, and also how they manifest, what makes them manifest as such. You could even have appearances from characters from the franchise's past year, if plausible. And yeah, that is, in general, how I would make a future Avatar series if it were up to me. Thank you very much for your attention. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. If you have anything you'd like to add, the comment section awaits your input. And if you want to see when the next video comes out, then please go ahead and subscribe. Maybe also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.